Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Public Works Finance and Safety Committee meeting of Monday, April 15, 2019. The first item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion second for approval? Moved by Solom, second by Manti. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 2 is public input time. If anyone's here to speak, come forward now. See no one, we'll move on. Item 3 is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion second for approval? So moved by Vilhauer, second by Bueller. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 4 is authorization to prepay a portion of the 2020 annual dues in the amount of $7,200 to First District Association of Local Governments in 2019 in order to facilitate completion of Watertown Area Transit Coordinated Transit Plan. And I know we have a couple of people coming to the full council meeting to talk about this, but essentially what it is the city has a normal amount of dues that we pay annually, and we've already paid our dues for this year. But if we wish to allocate our dues toward a certain project, we can do that, and we can prepay our dues from 2020 in this year and allocate them for this purpose, and it will help the transit. And this Watertown Area Transit Coordinated Transit Plan is necessary for them for seeking grants, and that's a really vital organization in our community, and I support that fully. And I guess we can discuss that if anyone has any comments or questions about it. Councilman Vilhauer?
Mayor, I need to recuse myself from discussion or voting on this topic.
Okay, noted. Anyone else? Okay, this will be a recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 5 is council consideration of change order number 2 with Farner Asphalt Sealers for the crack sealing project number 1816 for an increase of $50,000. Look for a motion second for approval. So moved by Bueller. Second by Roby, and I would like Heath to tell us about this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of council, we have a change order that we are proposing, the engineering department is proposing with Farner Asphalt Sealers. If you recall, this is the contractor that we awarded a contract to last year for the city's crack sealing project. And the current contract price with them is at $250,400. What city engineering wanted to do this year is take $50,000 of our crack seal and chip seal fund of which is $400,000 for the year. We take $50,000 out of that and change order in last year's contract this $50,000 amount. We've communicated with Matt on the legalities of doing this contractually. We have current bid items that the contractor is willing to honor. They have to come back again this year to wrap up last year's crack sealing work. So we thought we'd just make some use of those efficiencies and just tag on another $50,000 worth of crack sealing under last year's contract, hence the change order before you this evening.
Thank you. And as you may recall, we had weather-related delays last year, and winter came and the work wasn't done, and they requested that their contract be extended into 2019 to finish the 2018 project. So because they're going to be here already, that gives them an advantage anyway in their mobilization. So this is perfectly legal and seems like an easy way to go about it. Are there any questions or comments from the council? Councilman Vilhauer?
I guess I'm a little bit confused. Heath or Kristen, there's $400,000 budget for 2019. So this is coming out of that, or is it? Help me out here. Help me explain this.
No, great question. So in 2019, we do have $400,000 budgeted for chip sealing and crack sealing combined. So we in engineering decided to parse out 50 grand of that $400,000 this year for additional crack sealing under this contract. We'll use the other 350 towards the upcoming chip seal project that we'll be talking about here next.
Okay, I guess that maybe leads into my next question. I mean, because we'll be talking about that later, isn't the combination of those two going to be in excess of our $400,000 then?
It will be, and that's another point of discussion I'll be having with you on a few
Okay.
of the bid awards this evening.
Okay.
Any other questions? That was a good question, Glenn.
I would note, too, just for the record, this change order, it's not on the request for council action, but it is on the change order itself. Does bring the new contract price to $300,400.
All right, thank you. Anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 6 is council consideration of a bid award for the Northridge Edition Street Reconstruction, project number 1902, to Dunick, Inc. in the amount of $488,394.75. Look for a motion second for approval. Moved by Mantee, second by Y. And I will ask Keith to explain this as well.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So this is one of our two subdivision street reconstruction projects for the coming construction season. This one's located up in Northridge. There's a map included, if I could get Ray to pull that up just for reference, that shows the general vicinity of the streets that we'll be working on under this project in the Northridge subdivision, which include 8th Street Northeast, 9th Street, 10th Street, and then 19th Avenue Northeast as well. The bids for this came in within reason of the engineer's estimate. However, they are over the budgeted amount by $26,405.25. Engineering would like to propose that we go ahead and award this contract, even though it is does have some overages as far as what was budgeted and where the bid came in. I've been in discussions with the finance officer. We hope to address some of these shortfalls either through a budget supplement, through unreserved fund balances that we have on hand, or through other 212 fund project savings, or by not carrying out some of our other 212 fund projects that are budgeted this year. I haven't quite packaged up a nice clean proposal on how to do that, but I do know in talking with Kristen that we are at a fair level of comfort moving forward with this award with, at a minimum, with our unreserved fund balance that we do have available.
Thank you. Are there any questions, Councilman Solom?
Just for curiosity, how old are these streets up here?
Not terribly. Do you know how old?
I do not know off the top of my head. I don't know if Colin knows that from his history here.
No,
or not.
they're not terribly old. It's unfortunate, but we know that they're bad because we've done our pavement management, and they process they went all through and rated all the streets. These have been problem streets up there for several reasons. Ever since they were built, right from the get-go, we had settlement problems. The backfill during construction was not like you would hope, and we've done a lot of work out there. Yes, we would expect normally for a street to last longer than these have.
I believe, Councilman Solom, they're approximately 15 years, maybe 18. Not the life expectancy that we would hope to get out of our streets, but given the circumstances we're dealing with, this was one of high priority to address the reconstruction needs in this neighborhood.
Councilman White?
I see on there it includes 2,500 square feet of concrete sidewalk. Do we replace sidewalk then, or?
Yeah, and if I could have Colin come forward for any specifics. I know one of the other interesting things we're doing here is instead of running a separate, and I'm glad you brought this up, instead of running a separate concrete replacement project for the year, sidewalk replacement project like the curb ramps that we typically do, we're incorporating those into these neighborhood projects and putting those funds and that budget towards those expenses. and getting hopefully some economy to scale on our bids, a little bit reduced pricing for that concrete work, and not having to run a separate autonomous sidewalk contract. So I believe, Colin, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is strictly what those quantities are for in this project, as well as for corner curb ramps?
That is correct. We have to make, excuse me, we have to make all the corners ADA compliant when we touch the crossing itself, and that, like Heath just mentioned, that's our ADA project for this year as well.
So it's not the sidewalk, it's just the corners, it's not in front of properties, it's the corners to make them compliant?
Correct, and then there's a tie-in point too, so it is a little bit, there's a few panels of tie-in each direction.
Councilman Danforth?
When we're talking about, define reconstruction to me, because are we literally taking the road out, replacing the subgrade material and then resurfacing? Or what are we doing that's going to bring an expected lifespan to these streets?
I'll go ahead and start off with that, Councilman Danforth, and I appreciate that question so we can shed some light on this process and how we do this. For this particular year's projects, what I had asked staff to do was go ahead and core these sites so we knew exactly what we had for a cross-section in our existing street. What's the thickness of asphalt? What's the base course depth before we get to the subgrade? And what condition is all that in? So we had those cores done, and that enabled us to sharpen our pencils in the design phase and make sure that everything's accounted for like it needs to be as far as the replacements go, whether we need to add additional base course because there's not an adequate amount there. Now, in these particular streets, now here's where I'll hand it off to Colin to explain specifically, but I believe these are all full-depth asphalt removals. We will address any shortage of base course that may exist on any of these projects and bring it up to an adequate depth of base course, and any rework and compaction of that base course before we repave them. And some of these also include edge drains as well, which help take that subsurface moisture out to the side of the road and keep it from migrating underneath the pavement and causing problems with the pavement over the years. And those edge drains, I think, will go a long ways, particularly in this neighborhood, to help mitigate those groundwater issues and subsurface water conditions that we observe that do cause these streets to prematurely fail. Colin, do you got any more specifics you could add to the construction part?
I think Heath did a fairly good job there. In this instance, the edge drain, or a lot of people call it drain tile, usually that's more for fields, but we are installing that. But then anywhere where there's a shortage of base, we're taking it all out. We're putting fabric and base course back in to the adequate depth. We set our minimums. We're kind of in the process of updating our minimum section, but and that's kind of what we're moving forward with, trying to make these streets better for a longer period of time.
How much of the streets are we getting full fabric or geotextile material? Or is that just going in spots?
I think there's one full road here. I want to say it's 9th, but I don't know off the top of my head. That's getting full fabric. Otherwise, there was adequate base in a lot of these roads actually. So, and to avoid extra cost, we don't want to tear all that base out and put it back in. Mm-hmm. So those areas will not get fabric.
Okay, Councilman Y.
So would you say, Colin, that when you did your core samples, did it show that the roads were done adequately 15 or 20 years ago, or were they not up to par?
Taking a core sample in current time probably won't give you a great past how it was constructed, because over the course of time, the gravel becomes kind of combined with the soil types, and so sometimes it's hard to judge when the roads are older based on just core samples if it was built right or not. So I guess I don't have a good answer for that, but there was some areas had good base course still, so we were surprised to see that in some of the areas.
So was it built right? I mean, do you think it was built right, or is that not what caused it to fail, or what caused it to fail?
Well, and to Councilman White's questions, I would offer that we do have a good composite section, which means there's asphalt, aggregate base, and then subgrade, which is good. It's usually when we go back and find premature failure, we find that there wasn't any base or very, very little base course to help mitigate those moisture concerns that I was talking to previously. The other thing I wanted to point out too, 15 to 20 years ago, I don't know without doing some research, what the design standards were, if any, that we really held the developers to at that time, which is something, of course, that we're changing and updating as we speak, as far as our design standards for these streets and these subdivisions. And I would say it is comparable to what I would have expected to see from a appropriately built road. I do think the moisture conditions and this edge drain are probably an afterthought that weren't considered back then, and will help this new pavement hopefully see a useful life a lot more appropriate than what this is seeing.
And to hit on that point a little bit more, we have installed that drain tile or edge drain in a couple roads here, and those are seeing better than expected results based on that. So we're hoping that that's the case. It could be just coincidence, but we are hoping that is
I don't think it's a coincidence. I've watched these roads fail through time, and actually there was never any drain tile at all in them when they were built. And you could actually see, remember one construction season we were out there looking at the road, as a truck would drive by, water would squirt out of the cracks. And it's very high groundwater. Water's probably the main wrecking thing that we have out there, so we're dealing with it differently than we did the first time this was built. Hoping for better results. Other questions or comments? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 7 is council consideration of a bid award for the Genstad Addition Street Reconstruction Project number 1903 to Dunnick Inc. in the amount of $363,129.75. I look for a motion, second for approval. Moved by Bueller, second by Danforth. And Heath, I'll have you explain this one too.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is our second subdivision street reconstruction project that I referenced earlier, located in the Genstad Addition. And again, I have a map up, Ray, if you could pull it up for reference, just for location of these improvements. Just north of Lake Pelican and south of Highway 212. And it includes a series of streets similar to the other subdivision. They were just in seen enough deterioration over the years that they're in need of reconstruction, and doing a lot of some of the similar measures as we are up in the Northridge Addition, as far as asphalt removals, addressing any base course deficiencies, installing any edge drain where needed or where it's ideal. And then this one also includes some of the sidewalk corner ADA ramps as well. Budget-wise, this one again is over budget by about just shy of $38,000. And again, engineering staff is comfortable making the motion to accept this bid award in discussions with the finance officer and through a budget supplement addressing this shortfall as well.
Thank you, Heath. Any questions or comments? Kristen?
The only thing I'll add on that is, as Heath mentioned, we have talked about the budget. This is kind of the first awards for bids that have happened. So the next bids that we open and we kind of see, we'll have to look more closely at the 2019 budget to see before we award any more how comfortable we are with doing that and seeing how the budget's looking. Because yes, the next option would be then to supplement the Fund 212 budget. So thanks.
Thank you.
Mayor, one more thing. I was just told that bids throughout the state, including the DOT bids, are coming in about 10 to 15% higher than expected. So it's just the bid climate this year that everyone is seeing.
Nice. Thank you. Any questions or comments about this? See none, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 8 is council consideration of a bid award for the 2019 chip seal project number 1915 to Asphalt Service Tech Corp. In the amount of $368,999.59. Look for a motion second for approval. Moved by Vilhauer, second by Mantee. And Heath, I'll let you tell us about this one too.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And this can kind of follow up on Councilman Vilhauer's earlier discussion with the budget pertaining to the 2019 chip seal and crack sealing funds. That budget amount was $400,000, as we discussed. 50 of that we wanted to allocate towards additional crack sealing. Now you'll see this bid amount coming at $368,000. Obviously, we're $18,000 over on this bid award. This is where, again, staff and working with the street superintendent, Mr. Bainan, and with the finance officer feel it's prudent to move forward with these particular improvements. And if we have to back off on another project or reprioritize other project funding in the 2019 funds, we can certainly do that with Kristen's assistance and Rob's and Collins and my work and efforts there.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments? See none, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Sorry, if I could just chime quick on that last item. Just for council's information, this chip seal this year will look a little bit differently than it has in previous years. We're doing what's called a chip seal fog seal project, where we'll do a conventional chip seal like you would normally see, but then we're going to come back on top of that with another shot of oil overlay. So you're going to have the black. It's going to look almost like a new asphalt mat when it's complete. And staff worked real hard working with larger city specs that have used this in the past and with the DOT on their specifications for this kind of a chip seal, fog seal combined effort. This is something, again, the street superintendent brought forward to us with interest in wanting to do. And we thought it was a great idea to give it a try in this manner. And we found that the bids did come in, surprisingly fairly competitive to what last year's regular chip seal bids were. So we were glad to see that as well. I forgot to mention that in my summary.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And the public will respond. You'll see, they like this better than our traditional chip seal projects. And seems like everybody wants their street to be kept in good condition, but when you give it the standard rehabilitation techniques like chip seal, everyone's horrified. And this will look like a new road. Yes, Colin.
With this fog seal, it will help keep that chip seal in place. As I'm sure some of you have noticed, last year's chip seal, some of those roads have already failed, have not met standard. So those will be warranted this year, and so there will be some rework done by this company. Just to give a heads up too, because that I know it was kind of contentious last year, mostly because of timing, but there will be some downtown roads that will be redone this year.
All right, thank you. Councilman Danforth?
Would this be then the equivalent of what the state did on Highway 20 last summer, I think it was?
That's exactly what this is.
It does look like a much better end result, but I'm not an engineer. I don't want to.
I think we already voted on this. Did we? Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Item number 9, I'm going to correct the dollar amount and update that a little bit. Item 9 is council consideration to authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents related to the professional services agreement for construction administration associated with the Phase 1 Trail Improvements Project with Infrastructure Design Group, Inc. in the not-to-exceed amount of $46,120.50. So look for a motion second for approval. Moved by Albertson, second by Mantee. And Heath, I'll let you start this one off.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a professional services agreement with Infrastructure Design Group as a follow-up to their design work on Phase 1 of the Trail Improvements Project around Lake Kempeska. And Jay is here, and as well as Vanessa from IDG, and Jay, our Park and Recs Director, that can speak in greater detail on what this includes, but it essentially gets them into the construction phase and gets us a contract to cover all the necessary construction inspection phase of work that will come soon down the road here.
Yes, we hope to get the bids out real soon. Okay, thank you. Yeah, we hope to get the bids out real soon on this Phase 1 project. And what this contract would do, this would be all the construction administration and the field staking and the inspections and all this type of thing when the trail is under construction.
All right, Vanessa, do you want to tell us a little about it?
Yeah, we do hope to get this out to bid as soon as possible, especially with bid prices being the way that they are. Late in the game, we have had some redesign that has been necessitated by landowner negotiations. So we are in the process of buttoning that up and hope to get it bid. We have been kind of boots on the ground on this Phase 1. So we have a pretty good working relationship with most landowners out there. And so I assume that our construction season should go pretty nicely. It is hourly, also not to exceed. And the nature of trail projects are not necessarily that we're going to have a guy sitting out there 40 hours a week when nobody's doing any work. So depending on the contractor's schedule, you know, it could come in way less than that. This is just our best conservative effort going forward for budgetary purposes.
All right, thank you. Any questions for them? Councilman Vilhauer?
I just want to make a comment. I'd like to commend Milt and Chris Carter, who who is granting an easement or donating a strip of land along the west edge of the edge of the trail, and they were very accommodating and trying to address the landowner, the homeowners' concerns out there. So I do want to extend that gratitude to the Carters.
I agree.
Yes, we owe them a debt of gratitude. That's great. Thank you. Councilman Danforth?
No, we're on number 9, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Is number 10 the finalization or the design of the trail portion that we were referencing in 9?
Yes.
Because they're both called Phase 1. So one's the administration, that's number 9.
Yep.
10 is really the finalization of the drawings and specs or requirements.
And a few other miscellaneous items,
Okay.
yes.
Pretty much it all involves the design segment of the project.
Other questions or comments? All right, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 10 is council consideration to authorize the mayor to sign amendment number 1 to the professional services agreement with Infrastructure Design Group for the Phase 1 Lake Compesca multi-use trail design project number 1726 in the amount of $17,950. I look for a motion second for approval. Moved by Manti, second by Y. And Heath, want to introduce this, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. As Councilman Danforth indicated, that this is directly related to the completion of the design of the same section of Phase 1 trail improvements that we're currently under contract with IDG for. This change order is essentially broken down into 3 different items. One of them, the first one, relates to the trail alignment and having to do some redesign due to some recent property owner discussions and in relation to not only property owners that are adjacent to this pathway, but the property owners that the pathway, a majority of the pathway will be located on, and finding out some discrepancies and where some property lines lay and what some perceptions were about those property lines, and us wanting to put the trail in the best place possible for all parties being considered. And so that does necessitate IDG to have to do some redesign of what they otherwise had final designed. And so there's some expense associated with that. Item 2 is additional public involvement. That primarily extends back towards what I was just describing. IDG's been involved in several property owner meetings, more than probably were initially anticipated, but they've all been good, productive discussions that have got us to a point to where we're in agreement with the property donor and the adjacent property owners on this new configuration. So I think they've been constructive and worth the additional cost for IDG's time in those negotiations. I know that Matt, the city attorney, and Jay have been involved in those property owner discussions as well. And again, it just amounted to a few more meetings than we initially thought it would take. The third phase is kicking off and going into phase 3 segment and applying for the Transportation Alternatives Grant application for phase 3, which is off the southwesterly corner of the lake, if you will. And we thought that it would be appropriate, even though this is a design contract for phase 1, these are similarly related duties that IDG would be performing by completing the grant application for phase 3 segment B. And those 3 items totaled would amend this contract in the amount of $17,950.
Thank you. Anything you'd like to add, either Vanessa or Jay?
Just on the Segment B grant application, this would hopefully extend the grant application that we were already approved for earlier this year. And hopefully, ideally, if it can happen, we do it all together. But we'll have to see once from this new grant application period.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the grant application that we just learned about the award last council meeting for $400,000. That was segment A, and now we hope to apply for segment B, and that will complete all of phase 3 for the project through South Dakota Department of Transportation Alternatives. I would like to talk a little bit about the public involvement. We did scope out certain property owner meetings, and coming straight off of the concept phase for the trail design, we believed that we had enough in there because we had just finished project advisory meetings for the trail, and we met with people. We had 2 public hearings about the trail and the way that it was kind of going to be aligned. And then once we got to the actual design of the trail, it just wound up being a lot more property involvement. Quite frankly, more property involvement than I have had in some projects in downtown Sioux Falls. But it is what it is. End of the day, we want a successful project, and we want it to move forward as much as possible. And so this one is definitely cart before the horse. It was on our end wanting a successful project and moving ahead.
All right, thank you. Any questions, council, or comments? All right, we'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Oh, go ahead, Glenn.
I'd like to ask, excuse me, I'd like to ask a question as long as you two are there. Not on the bike trail around the lake, but what's the status of along 21st Street by the airport fence out there? What or when is that going to, that's on the agenda to get taken care of this summer, right?
We have a budgeted project for that, but we're kind of waiting to hear back from FAA as to whether we can move that trail up top or not.
So that we're still involved in conversation with them then, with the FAA.
That is correct, Councilman Vilhauer, and we've been in communication with Todd. Todd's helping us wait anxiously out there at the airport for that. Their approval of that plat is essentially what's held up the progress of that construction along that trail. And to get their checkoff on that plat just has not happened yet, but we have been checking in with them directly on I'd say a monthly basis now it's come to. And but you're all right, that stretch needs to be completed this year, and that's the plan to complete it once we get that approval.
All right, moving on. Is there any old business?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
If I may give the council an update on the Highway 212 traffic impact study. We are in receipt of the final draft. Colin and I have given that a cursory review in relation to Phase 2 of the Highway 212 project and the traffic impact study that the city hired H.R. Green to perform. We had a handful of intersections, if you recall, that we wanted them to assess, that the DOT requested that we assess based on some of our initial asks of them to incorporate some changes in Phase 2 regarding intersection alignment, location of a couple of the traffic signals, or one traffic signal in particular that's located at 13th in front of the mall. The 11th Street intersection there by Montgomery's Furniture was another one that was assessed. And then as you go further east, the intersection with 17th, and then further on where that service road ties in with 19th. All those areas were looked at in this study. The consultant did provide some detailed analysis of each of those locations, and Colin and I have a meeting Wednesday with the DOT to do a final design walkthrough on Phase 2, and I hope that our intentions are that we discuss this traffic study at that meeting as well. And after my meeting with them, I'd like to come back with council. I'm hopeful for the May 6th meeting to provide more detailed recommendations that we can move forward with to propose to the DOT and incorporate in their final design for that phase of work. And that's I just wanted to give an update where that was at.
Thank you, appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Any other old business? Is there any new business? Seeing none, we will have an executive session in order to discuss and consult with legal counsel on contractual matters, pending litigation, and personnel matters. And we do not expect to take action upon coming out. So I'll look for a motion to go into executive session, moved by Councilman Bueller. Second by Councilman Y. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. We're in executive session.
I could have